Good morning, everyone. Hello to all of you with us online this morning, joining us from many different locations today. There are quite a few more empty seats in the sanctuary today. I think more of you are traveling this week, or you heard in advance that I'm preaching on fasting and just chose to sit this one out. I don't know, but it's good to be with you as well. Last week, Andrea and I introduced a movie that is coming out on July 4th. It's called Sound of Hope. It's the story of a small church in Possum Trot, Texas, where 22 families of this church adopted 77 children out of the foster system. They adopted every child within a 100-mile radius of this church. Friends, there are 113,000 children in the foster system in the United States who are eligible for adoption right now. 113,000. 386 in Oklahoma, 68 in Tulsa, Raymond, Braden, Caitlin, Clarence, Serenity, Jeremiah, Jasmine, to name a few. There are approximately 380,000 churches in the United States, meaning if 1/3 of our churches had one family in that church who adopted one child, 113,000 children would have a home. The solution seems clear to me. Psalm 68:6 says that God places the lonely into families. And many, if not most, of these children in the foster system have been abandoned, neglected, and potentially abused. It sounds rather lonely to me, and God wants to position them into families. I pray, and I ask you to pray with me, that this movie would help shake and wake up the church to open our homes to these children. We rented a theater for July 7th for the church to go watch this movie, and tickets sold out almost immediately. So we've rented another. And if you would like to pick up a ticket, our serve and outreach director, Amy Sinea, is in the lobby today. She'd happily sell you tickets to come watch this movie as it comes out. And if purchasing the ticket is an issue today financially, tell her it's free for you, and I said so. We want you to go, and I guarantee, Amy and I went together for the pre-screening of this movie. We wept the entire time. It's a hard watch, but it's a true story of 113,000 children currently in our foster system. So please go, and I'm confident if you do, God is going to stir something in your heart. Okay. Everyone take a deep breath. Everybody okay? All right. Do you remember when we could go out to dinner and you could open a menu and you could pick whatever you wanted to eat based off of the price? And there was never any guilt for how many calories you were consuming? Do you remember this? There was just one number next to every meal, and it was a price. There were no calorie counts. In 2008, New York became the first state to legally require calorie labeling on restaurant menus. Jerks. The FDA recommends that we consume 2,000 calories a day, and now, because of calorie labeling in our restaurants and our grocery stores and more, now we know when we go out and have a mocha frappuccino, we are consuming 500 calories, a quarter of what your body needs in a day. Have you ever had Chili's skillet queso? Come on, raise your hand and confess it this morning. Confess your sin this morning if you have had Chili's skillet queso. 1,400 calories. Yes. And some of y'all are justifying this right now because you're like, nuh-uh, I went on a date and we split it. So I had halfsies. That was only $700. That wasn't $1,400 for me. McDonald's. This is the big tasty meal. You know, quick thing about McDonald's. And I had a problem with McDonald's. Back in 2004, the church I served at was located right across the street from a McDonald's. And we quickly developed a problem. The problem was called the McGriddle. You know this? 2 waffles saturated in syrup. And it is syrup, it's not syrup. Saturated in syrup. And then they made a breakfast sandwich out of it, and I would just eat that thing, and it would just drip. And it became a problem. So, and then I realized what I was doing to my body. So I was in India in 2005, a year after the McGriddle was released. I'm ordering in India. We're there in McDonald's. It's all chicken. There's no beef, right? It's all chicken meals. And I just decided that day I'm never having McDonald's again the rest of my life. I haven't touched it since 2005. I'm coming up on my 20-year anniversary without it, and today I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's nasty. But this is not nasty. This is the Big Tasty. All right? And the Big Tasty is 1,980 calories. Anybody having fun yet? You guys like Little Caesars? If you do, maybe you've had the 5-meat pizza. 3,500 calories. I don't care if you're going halfsies. That's bad. I got one more for you. Last week I was able to come up on Wednesday night and grill hamburgers. Scott Carpy and I grilled hamburgers together, splashed hot grease all over ourselves, ruined a pair of shorts. It was awful. It was hot. We made almost 300 hamburgers. And Collier McLaughlin, one of our high school students, walks up. I'm trying to be a cool dad moment. You know, I'm like, hey, Collier, you want me to make you a double? And he's like, how about a quad? That's 4 patties. So I make him a 4-patty burger. I compared this to In-N-Out's menu because they have something called a quad. So Collier, 1,050 calories in that one sandwich. Probably burned them all in 10 minutes. Hey, bud. Well done. Even though we know what we know about what we eat, research has proven that even with calorie labeling, we are saving ourselves a total of 45 calories whenever we order. Like we decide, I'm going to get the mushroom Swiss something burger, but just hold the mushrooms. I'm going to pull back a little bit and get 45 less calories. It's the equivalent of a box of raisins. Like, well done, church. Look at us, our self-discipline, self-denial. I'm gonna withhold a box of raisins from myself today. Even with warnings on menus, what is my point with all this? We continue to consume whatever we want because what do we want? Full tummies, full lives, full everything. Richard Foster writes that in many ways the stomach is like a spoiled child. And a spoiled child does not need indulgence, but needs discipline. Discipline. Let's keep that in mind as we look at Scripture today. In this abbreviated sermon, because you know we're ending early preaching so that we can focus on Scripture this summer. In this abbreviated sermon, I'd like to define fasting, and then I hope to answer 4 questions for us about fasting. Here's a definition that we can work with today. It's the deliberate abstinence. Say those 2 words with me. Deliberate abstinence from physical gratification, or really any gratification, for a greater spiritual goal. Now, today we talked about the Big Tasty. We've looked at food so far. But think about any gratification that you have in your life that you could fast. It could be TV. It could be social media. It could be Netflix. It could be wine. It could be chocolate and sweets. It could be other things that you enjoy, like complaining. Gossiping. Unnecessary spending. Here are the questions that I'd like to ask or answer today. Should we fast? Why should we fast? Why should we not fast? How to start a fast. Here we go. We'll do this fast. Should we fast? Short answer, yep. First service, Jerry Harrison was sitting right here. I said, yep, and he goes, good sermon. Yes, we should fast. According to Pew Research, only 18% of Protestants fast. Only 18% of our church family practices this spiritual discipline. 82% are missing out. And perhaps they're choosing to ignore Matthew chapter 6, verse 16, where Jesus was giving instructions on fasting, and he said, when you fast. Now, his audience that day was familiar with fasting. It was a common practice in Judaism. And there is ample evidence for us in ancient literature that people practiced this discipline twice a week. And Jesus is coming on the scene and offering some correction. When you fast, do it this way instead of this way. But they would have understood what Jesus was talking about. But what about us? We're his audience as well as we open the Gospels today, right? How do we apply this instruction to our lives today? Well, we cannot fail to notice that fasting is positioned right in Scripture in the same breath with instruction on giving and prayer. So I've got a question for you today. Are we still meant to be a giving people based off of Jesus' instruction long ago? And are we still supposed to be a prayerful people? I would suggest we're also meant to be people who fast. Jesus said, when you fast, not if you fast. He didn't say, I highly recommend fasting. He said, when. So this is a discipline that we should learn from him and put it into practice in our lives. Number 2, why should we fast? Look with me at Matthew 9, 14 and 15. John's disciples came and asked him, how is it that we, John's disciples, and the Pharisees fast often? See, there's further evidence that people understood this discipline already when Jesus taught on it. But why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast? And Jesus answers this way. How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he's with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, then they will fast. Jesus is using a metaphor here of a wedding. The guests in this metaphor represent all of his followers, past, present, future. Weddings were a special time of joy, and the guests, all the guests, were free from all of their religious duties for how long? 7 days. That's how long a wedding celebration would last. Sounds like a party, right? They were known for intense joy and wine and food in abundance. There was no fasting. People were with the bridegroom. But then Jesus speaks of being taken away, the verb connotating a violent removal. And what is he doing? He's quoting Isaiah 58, verse 3. By oppression and judgment, he was taken away. This is a prophecy of his coming death. And when that happens, people will mourn and people will fast, but not when he's with them. Picture his listeners that day, quite literally fasting on the presence of Jesus Christ, following him around 24/7. Talk about a feast, right? And he's saying, one day I'll be taken away, then you will fast. It will become a priority in his absence. And so for you and I today, as we wait and long for his return, you know he's returning, right? Come on, you know Jesus is a promise keeper. He's returning. And as we wait for his return, fasting is an expression of our commitment to him. Furthermore, on page 59 in this summer devotion that we wrote as a church, I shared some other reasons that you may choose to fast, to seek victory over temptation. Somebody needs to hear this today. Are you tempted? Are you severely hindered by temptation today? Fast. To confess and repent of sin, to demonstrate grief and mourning, to express a desire or need for God's help. When I have a couple in our church come to me and ask, we're not on the same page, we need God to help us in this decision-making process. We've been praying about it for 6 months together. We still don't see eye to eye. What's the next step? Fast. To long for healing from illness. I'm in that position right now. I haven't smelled anything in 2.5 years. I really miss it. It affects my taste. It bothers me constantly. I want to smell so bad. And so I fast to express my longing for healing from that, to pursue the will or guidance of God, to practice solidarity with Christ, to minister to others, to experience breakthroughs, to demolish strongholds. There are so many reasons that we might fast. But at the end of the day, whatever inspiration draws you into a fast, remember this. Fasting helps us to express, to deepen, and to confirm the resolution of what? That we are ready to sacrifice anything, even ourselves, to attain the kingdom of God. Even ourselves. Even our own gratification, our own desires. Think about this as human subtraction and divine addition. Even better, human subtraction, divine multiplication. You with me? You with me? Number 3, why should we not fast? Don't fast to show off. Jesus elaborated on those who flaunt their spiritual maturity in Matthew 6. When you fast, there it is, not if, or I highly recommend it. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they're fasting. Truly, I tell you, they've received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head, wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you're fasting, but only to who? Your Father, who is unseen, and your Father who sees what you do in secret will reward you. Oh, there's a good promise there, isn't there? Eugene Peterson puts it this way. The world is not a stage. When you practice some appetite-denying discipline to better concentrate on God, don't make a production out of it. It might turn you into a small-time celebrity. It's not going to make you a saint. Don't fast to show off. Don't fast to twist God's arm. God, if you don't answer my prayer the way I want you to and in the timing I want you to, God, if you don't do what's best for me, I'm not going to eat. That's not a biblical fast. That's a hunger strike. Don't do it. Don't fast to lose weight. You can if you want to, but that's not a biblical fast. That's a form of dieting. Don't fast to cover your sin. Don't fast thinking that it's going to acquire merit with God, like he's going to be super impressed with you. Forget about the wrong that you've done. Fasting is not atonement. Jesus Christ is atonement, not our disciplines. So don't fast to show off, twist God's arm, lose weight, or cover your sin. Last question. How do we start? If this is not a discipline that I regularly practice, where do I even begin? How do I get started? Many, many years ago, Andrea signed us up to run a half marathon. And I thought, she didn't talk to me about it. It wasn't an invitation. It was an expectation. I thought it was a bad idea. And I made the idiotic decision at the time that I was not going to train. Yeah. Forget it. I'm not training. I'm not going out. I'm just going to show up to the race, and I'm going to go. I'm not a competitive person. I'm an insanely competitive person. You want to meet me at a ping pong table? It's on, right? Very competitive, so I go, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm going to be the greatest story ever. Dude didn't train, ran a record time. So there I am on the line. The gun goes off, and off I go. And my first mile was a sprint. And if you are a runner, you're familiar with the term hitting a wall. So here I am sprinting that first mile. She's in my dust. Try to keep up. I hit a wall. Oh my. The sudden onset of debilitating fatigue. I hit a wall. The wall hit me. I don't know what happened. I was done. And for the next 12 miles, I was just trying to keep up with Andrea. And I did, and she led us at an 8-minute mile pace, and we finished. And I could barely walk for 3 days. So if you approach fasting like that, you're going to hit a wall. You're going to hit a wall so hard. So crawl before you walk. Just start with something small, something short in duration. Just start with something and then grow from there. But don't do what I did with the half marathon. Just start, crawl before you walk. Also in this book, I wrote about very practical advice about fasting. I wrote about many ideas of things that you could do to fast. I talk about how you should drink a lot of water and don't stuff your stomach with this giant meal right before you start. That's the opposite of what you want to do. There's a lot in here that you can read about fasting. I talk to those who are pregnant or nursing or diabetic or have health challenges. But start somewhere. I won't read all that to you right now because you'll read it and my time's up and you need to get to lunch unless you're fasting. Here in a moment, Pastor Garland is going to lead us in scripture meditation as we've been doing this summer. But I'll close with this. Jesus is returning. Jesus is returning. When he does, he will rule. He will reign. He is coming to make all things new. There will be no more sin, no more evil, no more darkness, no more pain, no more death. When Jesus returns, there will be no more fasting. There will be feasting. Feasting on his presence for all of eternity. And when we are in that place, brothers and sisters, we might look at each other and laugh at ourselves for how much we overestimated things in this life that were temporary and fleeting, like Chili's skillet queso and the big and tasty meal from McDonald's. So much more and so much better is coming. One day we will no longer fast, but boy, there is a feast on the way. Amen. Pastor Garland.
Let's prepare this morning by being quiet. Prepare to listen. I encourage you to put your feet flat on the ground. Close your eyes as I read this scripture. I also encourage you to take a couple of deep breaths. Just in through the nose, out through the mouth, in and out, just to settle yourself. Focus your heart and your mind on God. Acknowledge his presence with all of us in this moment. Ask the Lord to give you ears to hear his word. I'm going to read the passage. Pay attention to what words or phrases stick out to you. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What did you hear as you listened to the passage? Talk to God about what you noticed. Listen again to the same passage. This time, I'm going to read it a little slower. Notice if a particular word, phrase, concept, or even an image captures your attention. Come to me. All who labor and are heavy laden. And I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. And learn from me. For I am gentle and lowly in heart. And you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. What did you hear this time? What feelings came to the surface? Talk to God about what you noticed and what you felt. Talk to God honestly about where you find yourself in this exact moment. In this time by thanking God for allowing you to hear His word. Amen. A few weeks ago, I invited you to use your imagination as you listened to the story of Zacchaeus. I invited you to insert yourself into the scene, into the story. Last week, Adam invited you to notice your feelings as they came to mind as he was reading the passage from Romans, and then talk to God about those feelings. Today, I want to close out our time together to talk about community. Although this time for you this morning may have been an individual encounter with God, it's very important to our spiritual formation that we share these encounters with one another. I'm inviting you today to share with one person what you noticed this morning, what you heard God inviting you into. Maybe it's your spouse, or maybe it's a very close and trusted friend that you have. Sometimes these conversations are not easy, and that's understandable. So here's my encouragement, another kind of approach to it. Go up to someone that you trust and that you know and ask them, what did you notice? What was your encounter and your experience with God like? My guess is they would be more than happy to share that with you, and they might not, but they might ask the same return question to you. But reach out to someone else. Finally, scripture meditation, as we've been doing on Sunday mornings, is a great practice to do with your family. Up on the screen are 6 passages that I have picked out that you could easily start with. I've found the stories in the Gospels are an excellent place to start when doing this practice with the family. Feel free to take a pick. of it, what's up there, or if you don't that, drop me a text or an email. I'll be more than happy. I put 6 just because that's what filled up the screen, but there's obviously a ton of passages that we could use for this exercise and this practice. So how do you do it? It's really pretty simple. Mom and Dad, you sit down with your kids. It really doesn't matter how old they are. Pick a passage for the length. You know your kids. How long can they sit still? Sometimes not very long. That's not the point. The point is to sit and go slow, read the passage several times, and then just simply ask the question, what did you notice? Because they will notice something, and you will too, and you can share that with them. So, why don't we close out with a song?